In facilitating hypnosis, we use a lot of communication, which might seem obvious, but these kinds of communications and how they impact our sessions is really, really important to understand. So today, we're staying within the realm of spoken language, but we'll look at different levels of communication, specifically different levels of communicating hypnotic suggestion. Milton Erickson, a psychiatrist who many consider the father of modern hypnosis, was extremely good at delivering suggestions on many levels at the same time. Each level was meant to support the therapeutic treatment in his patients in various ways. And he understood very well that the thinking, talking part of our mind didn't always want the same thing as our unconscious. The part of our mind which doesn't speak, but encapsulates the things like emotions, gut reactions, and intuition. When asked a question, for example, before a single word leaves your lips, your unconscious process have triggered a bunch of associational contexts in your mind. They've triggered linguistical concepts, semantic concepts, social concepts, all fueled by your life experience and the context that you're being asked a question in. This then needs to bubble up and become rationalized to be presented to your conscious mind in the form of emotions and in the form of the words that you choose to articulate. But before it's processed into speech, it's also filtered. It's rationalized and morphed by your active awareness, combining all of these automatic signals that you've been given into an answer. And now you speak your answer. This conscious filtering and potential replies and then feedback goes back into your unconscious, goes back into the realm of the unconscious, should I say. And it shapes and morphs the associations and emotions, and so the cycle continues. I won't go into the therapeutic implications of this, but sometimes the conscious mind will impact this feedback loop in a negative way and prevent changes from occurring and taking place. A patient might consciously rationalize, I've heard and tried so many things, and I've never gotten better. And this can truly distract and create a resistance to changing in a meaningful, positive way. And Erickson refers to these mechanisms, these conscious mechanisms, as someone's conscious sets, what they do which is within their awareness all the time. And so for our playful purposes, I want you to be aware that sometimes there's a need to communicate on multiple levels. Sometimes we need to create communication that resonates on a conscious level, and sometimes we need to communicate in a way that resonates on an unconscious level. And sometimes we have to do both at the same time. And we can do this in many different ways. Today, I'm mostly going to talk about indirect suggestion in the form of binds and double binds, along with associational implications. You might have heard the term indirect suggestion before. Indirect suggestion can be divided into many different approaches, targeting different levels of cognition. Binds and double binds are probably the most common ones that you will hear people refer to when you speak about indirect suggestion. I will refer to Dr. Erickson's definition of single bind and double bind here, though other authors sometimes mix the terms and do so interchangeably. The single bind, by this definition, is a single level communication, whereas a double bind offers communications on more than one level. I'll give some examples below. The simplest form of a bind is an indirect suggestion that uses the simple presupposition that occurs when you're presented with two choices, creating an illusion of choice, because we, the hypnotists, get to choose which association this happens to be, or which choices are presented. So the presupposition in this case is that you can only pick from the things that you're offered. It's a very natural thing for us to do. So a presupposition, if we generalize it a little bit, is simply something that we take for granted or must assume is true for the sentence we hear to make sense. Let me illustrate. Do you want peas or carrots? Yes. Because of the presupposition that those are the only available choices, most of us don't even think to ask for corn instead. And of course, the choice that we choose to present as the hypnotist is the way we want to guide our subjects. Would you like to raise your left arm or your right arm? The presupposition here carries the indirect suggestion, one of your arms will rise. These, even though we have presented two choices, are still single binds because we're communicating on a single level. A double bind is focused on communication on multiple levels. A second order of communication is initiated. One of the simplest forms of double bind is a time double bind. We can wonder just how soon your arm will lift. On level 1, we're communicating that the arm will lift by the presupposition that if it's soon, it's just a matter of time before it must move. On level 2, we're communicating a dissociation. We can wonder creates this fantastical little space where the conscious level self is not the one who's going to cause the arm to move. Because we're both wondering, you, me, hypnotist, subject, we're both wondering just how soon your arm will lift. It is implied that this motion will occur automatically or outside of conscious attention without volition, simply by presupposing that we don't know. We can wonder. We will have to find out. Now, this contains a second order communication, a meta communication that has to be reframed on the unconscious level to be acted on. But you might think, I would never have understood that second level. And that, my friend, is the point. It doesn't need to be understood. It doesn't need to be presented and framed in your conscious sets. Even if this cognition is beyond your appreciation, it is still presented together with a primary level communication that your conscious thinking, talking self can latch onto. When we do this, we must also recognize that this understanding might still take some time. And so it's important for us as hypnotists to slow down a little bit and give these suggestions time to grind through these loops of our mind. Say we want to suggest someone's arm becomes frozen in place. We could construct our double bind by considering simple things that cause an arm to be frozen in place. I don't know whether your arm will become rigid or completely disconnected, but you can find out when I do. On one level, we're communicating a simple single bind that we have two options that can lead to the arm sticking. Either it becomes rigid or it disconnects from your consciousness. On the second level, we're communicating that they consciously also have to wait to find out what the result will be, which implies a dissociation. they have to accept that they will have to find out when I do, which implies that their unconscious is going to do it. That is something that will occur outside of volition. Erickson also points out that you, as the hypnotist, can gain a lot of feedback from these interactions. To use these simple binds can inform you which double binds might work best for the individual that you're working with. And it's okay to use a few of them to see which ones work best. Now, to create even more levels of communication, we can use something that I like to call associational implication. And it can be incredibly powerful and create just even deeper meta-level communication structures. So we naturally build up a lot of different associations to things. And it's not always the same association, but we as hypnotists can reasonably assume and then make hypotheses from our assumptions. So in my hypnosis recording, The Library, I have a great example of another type of meta-level communication that uses this associational implication thing. And I use this just before causing someone to become stuck in their chair in a very special way. So I want you to have a think while I'm reading this. What associations come up in your mind? You note the creaking of the floorboards above you, immediately reminded that you're not alone in this place. Soon, the creaking turns to the tip-tap and click-clacking of high heels on the marble floor. When I hear this, I think of a presence. I associate this with a woman. I think a woman who holds herself in high regard, someone who demands respect purely by her bold choice of wearing high heels in a building with marble floors, someone with authority. Perhaps I think of a librarian or a dominatrix. I don't know what associations you had with that, but hopefully something along those lines. Now, with this meta-level communication rattling around in the context of whatever suggestion that you are going to be given after this can add an almost magical flair and certainly a very authoritative force to the suggestions. And this is saying that she has authority, professionalism, respect without even mentioning it out loud. Not a single word used. Indirect suggestion can be incredibly powerful and to most go completely unnoticed. And this comes with great responsibility, as you, the hypnotist, need to be ready for whatever outcome there might be of your suggestions and your meta-level communication. So play safe and don't let the librarians bite.